Are you feeling overwhelmed by your child's emotions? Today, we're diving deep into a powerful tool that can help: EFT tapping. Welcome to Water Prairie, a podcast for special needs parents. I'm your host, Tonya, and I'm glad you're here. In this episode, I'm joined by Jewell Siebert, a former Army officer and expert in EFT tapping. Jewell helps kids and teens manage big emotions so they can be more confident and resilient. We'll explore how EFT tapping works, how to use it with your child, and how it can help both of you navigate the challenges of parenting a child with big emotions. Be sure to stay until the end. As a bonus, Jewell will share how to use this technique with kids who are non-speaking or may have physical limitations. Jewell, welcome to Water Prairie.
Thank you.
Before we get into the topic, which is EFT tapping, Jewell, would you like to tell us just kind of introduce who you are? I think they've heard a little bit of your bio already, but is there anything you'd like to add about where you've come from and what you're doing today?
Thanks, Tonya. I'm really happy to be here. Um, so I am an EFT tapping practitioner, and before this, I spent most of my adult life as an Army officer. So I was active duty for 14 years, and I've been in the reserves for six, I think, or seven. Time flies. But I've been studying EFT tapping for the past 5 years and working with people with that too.
EFT tapping was a new term, phrase. I'm not sure how to explain what it looked like to me when I first saw it, but I was intrigued by it. Can you tell me what it is?
Yes. So
In layman's terms, please.
yes, it's a stress relief technique. And honestly, I thought it was crazy when I first learned it. So because it's just basically tapping on different acupressure points, and you tap on them and you think about um, any difficult emotions you're having. You can speak it or think it, and it helps your body turn off the fight, flight, freeze response. So it literally tells your amygdala to stop producing stress hormones, and it turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, so you can have these same thoughts and emotions without having the same physiological response. Like when you stress out and you start sweating or your heart starts racing, and your brain, the blood flows away from your prefrontal cortex into like the survival things, the survival processes in your body. So when you tap, when you're stressed out, you see, it allows your body to say, "Oh, I'm safe." And then you can start thinking more clearly again and start responding in a more healthy way. And the coolest thing, so it works in the moment, and it helps your brain to create new neural pathways so that when you have these thoughts and feelings in the future, you will either have a lesser response or no response. So no physiological response. So it's really cool.
Is it the actual tapping? Is it the location of the tapping, or is it a mental calming that's happening?
It does matter where you're tapping. It's a mental and physiological process. So it's a combination of cognitive behavioral theory and somatic practices. Because there have been studies, because people were curious, well, what if I tap on random points that aren't actual acupuncture points? And those studies showed that it did make a difference. It was statistically significant that it was on those points. It's pretty cool because there have been studies on the meridian system. A lot of folks, people have been studying the energy meridians for a long time, but there wasn't a lot of scientific like backing for it. But it turns out there is actually a premovascular system going on, and there's there were studies first in the 1960s, but 2002 is when people were able to duplicate the processes. So they've been finding that these points actually are connected, and they're still learning about it. But there's actually something there in our body that makes these points significant.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard of acupressure, of acupuncture, all these things that are foreign to me anyway. My son has done dry needling, so I understand that part of things. But it's all kind of new, but it seems like just in recent years, there's been more and more types of therapy that come out that
Yeah.
are not as intrusive as or as maybe not intrusive, but it doesn't always have to be a pill that we have to go to. That sometimes
Yes.
there's other options that we can do. We've talked about behavior modification before. We've talked about dietary changes. And so this would be another way that would be, whether you would consider it a safe one. I wouldn't think there'd be side effects from this that you would have to worry about, or are there?
Well, sometimes it's not like traditional side effects. Sometimes, like if people tend to numb out or dissociate, it can like help you tune into your feelings. So your emotions can be more intense while you're doing it. And in that case, you just keep tapping and use different techniques to like push the push the event farther away. There's more gentle techniques that you can use, but that's for like if there are traumatic experiences or things like that where it can get pretty intense. But if you're doing that, then you should probably be working with someone, if you're going to dive into the deep ones, someone who's actually certified, who knows what they're doing, because it can be emotionally distressing to bring that up and not know how to properly manage it. That's that's what I would say for a side effect. Otherwise, no.
One thing that I'm thinking about, because our audience is primarily parents of special needs children, a lot of times their children can have high stress, whether it's physical challenges that they're having, or educational challenges, or even just peer to peer stresses that they have in trying to find those friendships and going through school and not connecting as well as they'd like to. How can tapping help regulate the stress response in a child?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it can help for all of those things. Um, and I like to do so it can help in the moment. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable when they're in the moment doing it, like if they're having an interaction with someone, but they can do it like you can hide it. I do it all the time in public and people don't even know. You just tap on a certain point where maybe it's not that obvious, or if your hand is under the table, you can tap on the points there, go like this, or you can tap on something preemptively, like if you know you're going to be stressed, or you're worried about people not accepting you, or you're worried about having trouble focusing. You can tap on those things ahead of time. And it's crazy because you will just say those things that are stressing you. And, you can just say, like, I am so nervous about not fitting in and people making fun of me. And what if, and list out all the bad things. And you always want to list out the bad things because that's how it works. I have an analogy like you cannot, if you wax a dirty floor, you just get streaks of dirt. If you wash it up, talk about the negative, get that out. But you can use it ahead of time, or if like kids are in class at their desk and they're freaking out, they can tap on the heel of the palm, like sometimes they call it the karate chop point. But you could do this right under your desk, or just press on it, like push on it, and take deep breaths, and that can calm you in the moment without anyone even noticing you're doing it.
So you're naming what it is that you're focused on that's causing the stressor. So if you're a child in school, especially if they're maybe an autistic child who is trying to control a stemming need, and now this is causing more stress, adding they couldn't say this out loud because they're in class. If they're thinking it, is that enough, or do they have to name it out loud?
You can think it, and even if you can't, if sometimes we're so distressed or we don't have the verbal skills to like even form actual words in our minds, and that's fine. You would just tune into that feeling, because if we try to tamp it down, it like, granted, there are some times when we don't want to be bubbling over, but if we are having a stress response and feeling it, we know we're feeling it. So you don't even have to verbalize, you don't have to form coherent words. Just tune into that feeling. And you can, like, the points look like it's the normal points where we actually do like touch ourselves when we're stressed. Like you could just do this, and in the moment and just breathe and think about it and it will work.
As you were doing the last little series there, I'm thinking, how many times as a child did I have my hand down, I'm just kinda tapping my
Ah,
my lip.
right?
So, yes, you could easily make it look normal that you're just
Yeah,
thinking.
all the
It's
time. All the time.
right.
I do this all the time.
I'm picturing now all of our parents are gonna be sitting at the table now just kind of tapping a little bit. If their kids watch this, they're gonna know, "Alright, I'm stressing mom now." So
Yes. It's funny because my friends who know now, they're like, "Oh, you're tapping." Like they can see when I'm doing it. I'm like, "Yes, you are stressing me out."
my next question for you was gonna be for our parents, but I think you've already answered it, and that was gonna ask, in the moment that you're frustrated because your child is just having a full meltdown, could tapping help them? And my assumption is the answer is yes.
Yes, I do it all the time, like, because I have a daughter, and when, you have those moments and I just feel it bubbling up inside of me, I will tap. And you know what it's good for too? After one of these events, if, like, I have reacted badly, I have raised my voice or lost my temper and I feel guilty about it afterwards, I tap on that. I tap on the guilt. I feel so guilty because it doesn't do us any good to hold on to it. If we just keep replaying it, we can't really grow from it and do better. And, so I use it even after the fact.
Well, I can just see so many situations, not just our children of, you're going into that teacher conference that you have to go into one more time. Um, and even, we've talked a lot this season about family relationships and all. There's so many places that I could see this could be beneficial. All right, so you knew I was gonna probably ask this question, but I have to ask it. Can you walk us through a basic routine that parents could use with their children?
I would love to. So I'll show you and describe the tapping points. So these are the typical ones in the basic recipe. And typically we do them a certain order, but I will say it doesn't matter if you do all of them. Like sometimes people will have like it's not comfortable to tap all of them. So you should just do what feels good for you. But the ones in the basic recipe are the heel of the palm, and we typically start with that one. And then there's the top of the head. So if you were to take your fingers and draw a line to the top of or from your ears to the top of your head, and then here between your eyebrows, and then on the outside of your eye, like in your temple, and then under the eye on the orbital bone, and then under the nose, and then under your lip, like in the cleft of your chin, and then um, from your collarbone, a couple inches down and out, there's like that tender spot. And then under your arm, about 4 inches from your armpit, like kind of where your bra strap would be. So those are the basic ones. So we can do one. How about for feeling stressed and overwhelmed by everything we have to do as a parent? So we would start with the side of the hand, and you would just repeat after me. So even though I feel so stressed out right now, I accept myself and how my body is feeling, and keep tapping on that point. Even though I feel the stress in my body, and I feel it right now, I accept myself and how my body is feeling. Even though I feel so stressed out that I don't want to feel stressed out, and that's stressing me out even more, I accept myself and how my body is feeling. And then we move to the different points. So, top of the head, there is so much I have to do. Inside the eyebrow, everyone is counting on me. Side of the eye, there's so much I have to do. Under the eye, being a parent is so hard. Under the nose, I have so much to take care of under the chin. Everyone is counting on me. Collarbone. I have so much to do, and I don't know how to get it all done. Under the arm. I have too much to do, and I feel so much stress. And then I would go through that and do that more. And you can say everything that you're thinking and go through that a few times and then check in and see if it shifted. Oh, and the thing I forgot to say before we do it, we assign it a number on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being not at all, like for intensity, and 10 being the most intense. And you just pick where you are in intensity, and then you can see it as it goes down. And as it goes down, like when you get to like 2 or 3, you can switch to like, I'm open to feeling something different, even though I'm overwhelmed and can't add any more minutes in my day. I'm open to feeling differently. I'm open to it being easier. I'm open for things happening easier. I'm open to feeling more ease. I feel so stressed out, and I'm open to feeling more ease. So that would be an example of uh, a way to do it.
Yeah, so one of the questions I had when you were going through the initial one before we talked about the scale of determining kind of where you are, because you were listing what was bothering you, what or, what it may have been, and you were saying some of the same things over and over again. But I was wondering, would you ever get to the point where you go back through with almost like a mantra that, I can do this? Would you go that far?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes, and I always gauge it on how I feel because you never want to say something that's untrue. So if you're starting off in a place where it doesn't feel like I could ever be unstressed, a good thing to say is I'm open to the possibility, or I would like to feel, because if you say something that's untrue, then your brain is going to fight it. It's like, no, no, no. So things like that, I would like to be, I would hope for something. I choose to be more open. I am, did I say hope? I think I said hope, but you know, you can start off with things like that that aren't necessarily, I feel amazing and I'm the best.
Or so I guess you could say, I believe I can be stronger, or
Yes.
would that, so wherever
Yes.
you are as you're making that adjustment, you're speaking that at the time.
Yes. And I like typically as I do it, like I'll say I'm open to the possibility. And in another round, I'm like, oh no, I actually do feel like this is true. This is true for me. I am super smart. I can do this. So it goes kind of on a path.
Are there times where you'll go through a tapping session and you come out just a little bit less than how you went into it?
Hmm. Yeah,
And then others where you'd have a bigger change?
absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I'm just not ready emotionally to feel amazing. Like if I just experience something really bad, like when, um, for example, my husband and I, like when he said he wanted a divorce, like that was a really hard time. And I wasn't emotionally ready to be happy. So I just tapped on mourning the loss and just tapped on what I was feeling. And, I'm not ready to be happy, but I'm sad and it's safe to feel sad. It's safe to feel where I am. And I felt better. Like I didn't stop being sad, but I didn't feel frantic in it. I felt like calm and like this is the healing process. So I think that applies to a lot of things.
Yeah, I could see that because there are times that it's a process we have to go through, but we can bear the process, maybe is
Yeah.
where it's getting you to at that point.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's been a few times in my life where I've been at that level of stress where you're just getting through the day
Yeah.
to get to the next one, but it's a slow process sometimes.
Yeah. And I think when we tap, it allows us to feel safe in those emotions without trying to just gloss over it and pretend like we're not having a human experience.
And thinking too, now my listeners know this, but my kids are both in college, so they're older. A lot of our parents that are listening have younger children, and that's the intention of this podcast is to help that next generation kind of get some ideas of where some of us went wrong on our path so that they can learn from us. But you never stop being a parent. So whether your child is 4 or 40, when you get a phone call that things aren't going the way that you want them to go for them, it's like you've been kicked in the gut. And all of our hearts drop for different reasons depending on their age. And so I could see this being a calming method so that we in our parenting wisdom can hopefully listen and
Yes.
let them de-stress and share with us, and then maybe help them find some ideas that they could try and encourage them as we are at that role. Steve and I talk a lot about how we're in the coaching phase of parenting, where we're on the sideline cheering them on in life, but we can't protect them from everything anymore. We have to kind of let them go out there and try things their way, and cheer them whenever things are going great, and whenever they hit a dead end, if not pick them up, at least talk them through the process. So it does get challenging as they get older with it, and the stress does not change. Oh, it changes, but it doesn't go away. You
Yes.
still want to be there to fix it for them, and you can't.
That sounds terrifying to me.
Does
I'm
it?
so
Baby
glad
steps.
I'm not there yet.
Well, then I look back to those middle school years, and we talk a lot about that because that's where my heart is for our
Mm,
parents, especially our parents who have misunderstood kids in middle school,
yes.
because those were probably our hardest years. I tell parents that I run into that have young children, enjoy these years. There's a few that are coming that might be harder, but they will be better after those years too. So if you just stick with it. But
Yes.
um, but I but I've noticed that as we go through these almost battles with our kids, and your child may not have any disability at all, but you still go through battles with them as they're learning to become little people, and then they learn how to become teens and young adults. We're growing with them and we're learning as we go. But if we're involved in their lives, hopefully your relationship is getting stronger as they go. And so now we're still parents. We still have yes and no times that we have to talk with the kids, but because they are still under our care since they're still in college. But a lot of times I see that that's moving into a friendship now,
Mm,
and I can see 20 years from now we still will have a relationship, and we as a family we are a safe place for each other, and I value that so much that to get a phone call from my child halfway across the country to share something with me, it's like they didn't have to call me, but to want to tell us that still. And it's because we went through all those battles in those younger years and had to kind of make adjustments as we went, where I was misjudging, and um, we had, especially in again those middle school years, they're not easy for any child, but
yeah.
but they were a growing time for us as a family, where we did get closer during that time because we had to learn how to advocate, and we I learned that a lot of things I was doing were following the rules, but they weren't the best for our family, and so
Mm.
started making some changes during that time. I was not raised to question authority, so I had to grow a lot.
That's a hard one.
But it is. It is. So, yes, so hang on to these skills because 'cause you're gonna be using them. How old is your daughter now?
She's 9.
She's 9. Oh,
Yeah.
you're getting into some fun years now. So
Yeah.
life changes a lot in the next few years. But the girls, it's funny because I was always told that the girls are the hardest as you go into the teen years because, if you think about it, the terrible twos, it's an independence thing. They're growing into these different stages where they're learning to become independent. That's our whole goal as parents, is to help them be independent adults one day. But whenever they make those quick growth changes and they start pushing against us because they're practicing their independence, we don't
Yes.
like that. So just keep telling yourself, this is necessary for her to be who I want her to be one day,
The
and
word
it'll
no
be
is a
just
good
fine.
thing. Yeah.
right, so a question for you. So we have children, I think you've already answered this a little bit, but just want to clarify for our listeners. We have children who have sensory issues, who have medical needs. Um, are there any situations where tapping would not be appropriate for a child?
Yeah, so if kids like sometimes the pressure can be too much, right? Like this can be overwhelming for kids with sensory issues. So if you have children who can still like touch, but without, the tapping's too much, you can touch and breathe. You can just touch those spots, and that is also shown to be effective. Um, some people talk about imagining the points and just like imagining. I don't, sometimes I'll imagine doing it, like just as I'm walking up to speak in public or something. Um, I don't know if it works because I like my body is trained to like, okay, think about it and it's doing it. But, that's something that people could try. But definitely the touch and breathe on the points is an option for if it's too much.
Is this something that a parent could apply to a child, like a brushing technique type thing? And would they, and if their child is nonverbal, can they speak what they think is happening? And would the child still benefit from that?
Yes, absolutely. Um, especially like a technique that people use with this with young kids too is like if they're having trouble sleeping, um, even verbal or nonverbal, and they parents can tap on their kids to help them calm down and feel safe when sleeping. But absolutely, if your child's nonverbal, you can help them with it.
And even if your child is not nonverbal, they may not have the words yet to explain how they feel.
Hmm.
But if you saw the situation, or maybe can you start seeing patterns after a while of what seems to be more of a trigger for your child, you might be able to help them anticipate and walk through that. I like that because I know we do have part of our audience where they have non-speakers. We also have children who are not able to control their limb movements, so they wouldn't be able to do the tapping themselves. Interesting. And I find this really interesting. I'm looking forward to sharing this with the family tonight and seeing how they respond to it.
That's so cool.
Um, yeah. How do you have any tips on, because kids have their own mind,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking I have at least one who's going to say,
This is
it's it's
crazy.
it's just crazy. Yeah.
It totally is. It
Any
is.
any way to help encourage them to try it? I mean, other than, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, what do you have to lose? And I'll tell you, I think so my daughter, she thinks, it's never as cool coming from your parent, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
So
we know
she's
nothing.
yeah, she's like, "I'm not really into tapping." I'm like, "It's so good." And then she'll like see me doing an interview or somebody tapping with me and she goes, "Oh, that's cool." Or some kid like tapping. And I'm like, "Babe, this is what we've been doing." So, um, maybe seeing other kids, like my daughter says she would help me like make videos, like watching other kids do it can be
Oh, yeah.
helpful. Or, just telling, well, if you have a kid who's into science, like the APA is considering it for an approved method and the VA has
Wow.
started using it. So there's a lot of research, like if you have a science oriented kid who that would interest. But I mean, just having them try it or even modeling it, showing them videos of kids doing it, it could all be really helpful. Um, but I know, like, if I like pressure my daughter, like, you could tap for that. She doesn't. She's like, no. But I will say, like, she watches me do it, and sometimes I'll see her in the car, like, tapping. And she's like, shh, I'm tapping. Like, I'm like, okay. So I think
Is she
modeling.
really, or is this, "I just don't wanna talk to anybody right now." So
No, no, she's legit doing it.
she's I can see it now. When the other kids are
It's
putting
so
on
funny.
their earbuds, she's over there tapping just to
To
a
get
wall between
nobody.
her and mom.
So funny.
Like I said, you're going into some fun years.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, I thought it was totally crazy at first when I first learned it, like, but then doing it and seeing how much better I felt, I was like, okay, well, this is clearly a thing.
Tell me again, what does EFT stand for?
It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques.
Because I have a child with ADHD and because we experience that with our family, I see things like this being an easy way to help calm and balance and regulate without having to add another medication or another
Yeah,
therapist. I'm not I'm not in any way, listeners, saying to stop going to your therapist. That is not my recommendation here. But ask them about it when you go in and show them what you just learned to see, you know, I would say if it's dismissed at any time, always challenge them to look more or take in some references for them to see where you're finding the information too.
yeah. I'd say it's absolutely complementary. It is not a replacement for.
This season, I've been having my guests finish some statements to as a fun way of giving some advice, and Jewel has agreed to play this little part with me. So I have 3 statements for you, and I'm going to read them, have you repeat them, and then give whatever advice you want to give to finish them for me. All right, so your first one. If your child is feeling overwhelmed, EFT tapping can be.
If your child is feeling overwhelmed, EFT tapping can be a great tool to help them feel less stressed and more safe in the moment.
All right, number 2. The most important thing to remember when using EFT tapping is.
The most important thing to remember when using EFT tapping is you can't do it wrong. You tap gently, you tap on the points that feel good to you, you say the things that feel good to you, and you just breathe. And your body may get or your emotions may get more intense, and then they'll come down. But do what feels good for you.
And the last one, EFT tapping is a powerful tool for special needs children because it helps them.
EFT tapping is a powerful tool for special needs kids because it can help them love themselves more and realize that they belong just as much as anyone else.
You have given us some great information here, but I know our listeners are going to want to know more about you. So tell us, how can they get in touch with you? Do you do coaching directly? Do you work virtually? What are some of the projects you have going on? Anything you want to share?
So I do one-on-one coaching. I do it virtually, and I have a workshop how to help kids manage stress with EFT tapping. And then I have a program that's called EFT tapping for school and test stress. And that's basically a bunch of tappings that kids can use for school and tests, fitting in, being nervous, having fights with friends, things like that. So that's how I work with kids typically.
Where can they find you on social media? Do you have a website?
Oh, I do, yeah. So my website is jewellsiebert.com, JEWELLSIEBERT, and I'm Jewell Siebert on all the socials.
And we will post the links in the show notes. So if you're listening on the audio, look for the show note link back to the webpage. If you're on the YouTube video or the webpage, it'll be right there where you're watching it. So we can get there. As always, if you can't find it, just send us an email at info@waterprairie.com and we will get it to her. So Joel, thank you for sharing this. I'm excited to share this with my family and seeing what their response is. I'll definitely be trying it out in some future situations whenever my heart starts getting a little faster or I'm perspiring a little bit more before a crucial interview or something.
Thank you,
But
Tonya.
thank you. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a better understanding of what EFT tapping is and how it might be used to benefit your family. For more information on Jewell and her work, check out the links in the show notes. And if you haven't done so, be sure to subscribe to Water Prairie and share this episode with a friend. I'll see you next time.